telling me
This call is being recorded.
You there?
okay, I'm back in. Yeah, it kicked me out, but I'm back in.
Okay, all right. We're gonna start, and a lot of people who are familiar with gang stalking will eventually come across mind control programs, and in this country, at least, United States, mind control has become synonymous with MK Ultra, which is a mind control project that began under the Central Intelligence Agency. It formally started on record in 1953. We know that experiments were going on before that, but there's 150 sub-projects of MK Ultra, and MK Ultra deals with behavioral research and behavioral modification. And people were tested on at bars, brothels, homeless people were experimented on, people who were in the penitentiary, in the prison system, they were experimented on, mentally ill people in psychiatric wards were experimented on, and this was a covert project that utilized like millions and millions and millions of dollars. LSD has been formally the LSD experiments are what I think it's most famous for. Wouldn't you agree, Josh? Like the LSD is probably about what has given MK Ultra like a touch of fame, at least in modern times.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what the average person associates with it the most, probably when they think about like secret experimentation being done. I don't know if they get as much of the other senses about it.
Right. And LSD became illegal in 1966, but LSD experiments were rampant in the 50s and in the 60s. So after LSD became illegal in 1966, LSD went underground and the underworld started selling LSD. Like there's people today who are asset millionaires. They're rich right now with millions of dollars from asset they sold in the 60s. And so, as the LSD craze went out in the 1970s, other experimentations and other mind control type cult groups formed. I'm very well polished on the research of Jim Jones and the People's Temple, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that was a mind control experiment. A big part of it was a mind control experiment. There's been many other mind control experiments having to do with cults. And as this gang stalking stuff emerges more popular in the public's eye, we're learning how color perception, neuro-linguistic programming, covert drugging, trauma-based activity, threatening people, scaring people, intimidating people, that's a gigantic part of gang stalking. As we said, the radiation weapons, electronic weapons, and the voice-to-skull technology, making people hear voices. These are all being used to terrorize people. The gang stalkers are street terrorists, and just like MK Ultra used front groups, MK Ultra used college groups as front groups. They used the psychiatric institutions. They used the prisons as front groups. These gang stalking networks, these stalking networks, utilize neighborhood watch groups and other groups as front groups. So there's a big similarity in the two. I'll vouch for myself. I've been getting stalked for 3 years, and I've had my food drugged on multiple occasions to the point to where I was sick and I thought I was dying. I left the restaurant. I felt like I was going to die. My head was real dizzy, and I saw everybody around me just look real different. And I don't know what drug was put in my food. I just don't know what I had been drugged with all those different times. And the people at the restaurant were actually doing street theater and other gang stalking type activity while I was being drugged. I've had electronical weapons used on me multiple times, and just the overall color stalking, gaslighting, all that stuff for 3 years. And so I can relate completely to people who give the MK Ultra testimony To my knowledge, I've never been taken into a laboratory and have had my head cut open, had a microchip put in my brain, but I've had a lot of experience with mind control type experimentations done on me as I've been getting stalked for 3 years. And tonight we're going to be reading Project MK Ultra, the CIA's program of research and behavioral modification, the joint hearing before the Select Committee on Intelligence and the Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research of the Committee on Human Resources, United States Senate, 95th Congress, first session, August 3rd, 1977. Josh, you want to add a little bit in about your experience with mind control and gang stalking?
Yeah, I guess, hold on one second. I was getting ready to pull up that document too, so I can kind of read along with you. But, yeah, the feeling is, it's like the same tactics across different situations. Because, when you think back to some of the stuff you were talking about, like the history of it and everything, there were a lot of people who, like you said, maybe they went into a psychiatric institution or they were imprisoned or something, and that might have been the first time in their life that any of those tactics were ever used on them. So there's that aspect of it at that scale, which, is, I guess, maybe only just subjectively somewhat different from the way that I went through it, where it was like, I probably would have been traumatized anyways in the situation that I was in. So the MK Ultra aspect just kind of got brought in as an additional layer to the experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of the people, I've had experiences as well, like after being stalked for a year and a half, stalked multiple times a day, and going through the electronical weapons, the covert drugging. When I say stalked, I'm talking about not just the same individual stalking me multiple times a day, but people I don't even know participating in the gang stalking. Like every store I go into, everywhere I go, it's networked. And, I'll just be minding my own business, and this stuff will come to me. And, it started off as death threats. I ended up hiding in a house for a month, literally terrified. It went from death threats to me finding out I was being stalked, and it just went from there. And then I ended up going on a 37-mile walk, and the cops stopped me and asked me I wanted to ride home, and I don't trust the police. From my experience, the police are either a part of the stalking or they try to help hide it. And so at that point in time, I didn't want anything to do with the cops, and I said, no, I don't want to ride home. And they said, well, we don't feel comfortable with you being out here. You could have hypothermia. And so they called an ambulance, and the ambulance said, well, why don't we just warm you up a little bit, and we can take you back to the hospital. And, you look pretty cold. Why don't you just go why don't you can call a ride. So I gave them my mother's phone number, and the hospital called my mother. And as soon as my mother showed up, they had two women ask my mother if I claimed that I saw people following me. And I had been getting stalked by this group stalking for a year and a half up until this point. So, of course, everybody who knew me knew I had people. I talked about it all the time. And they told my mother that they were concerned that, my actions were not sane, that I had been walking too long. They made it look, they basically tricked her. And, in a way, well, she did it on her own volition, but she signed me involuntarily into a psychiatric ward. And the doctors there asked me two questions. They asked me some question, and I said, man, I've been walking for a long time, but I just want a glass of water. Then he asked me another question, and I said, I just wanted a glass of water. And they signed me involuntarily into a psychiatric ward. And then it turned into a thing to where they were trying to force drugs on me. And they were participating in the gang stalking. The gang stalking was going on at the psychiatric ward, and they were trying to force drugs on me. And they told me that we're going to have a legal hearing, and if the judge agrees to it, we'll be able to hold you down and inject you with drugs. And I said, I'm not taking any drugs. And this is while I was being gang stalked at the same fucking time, Josh, excuse my language. So I went to the hearing, and eventually they just let me go. They didn't want to go through with it, but I left. And when I hear the mind control experiments of the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and people talk about how they've been held down and injected with drugs and had their mind messed with, I know exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah, that's horrible. I didn't know about that part with them threatening to inject you. That's awful.
Yeah, they threatened to hold me down and inject me with drugs. They at the hospital while they were participating in the gang stalking, while different doctors were wearing different color coats and they were hiring certain people at the psychiatric hospital to participate in it. And this, you got to remind you, I was getting stalked for a year and a half before this happened. Where I lived at, everybody was doing it. And I was being terrorized and stalked for a year and a half, and then I end up at a psychiatric ward being stalked by the people who work there and them threatening to hold me down and inject me with drugs. This is how I've been living for 3 years. And so, I'm going to read further, Josh. Project MK Ultra, the CIA's program of research and behavioral modification, joint hearing before the Select Committee on Intelligence and the Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research of the Committee on Human Resources, United States Senate, 95th Congress, first session, August 3rd, 1977. And in the beginning, you can, when you look at this, it's going to tell you about all the different hearings they've had: Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, Committee on Human Resources, Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research. This is historical documentation we're going into, and the intentions of the people at this time was to have a fair hearing on the mind control experiments, and I think they were pushing to end them and do something about them because people were actually being murdered who were being experimented on. There was murders committed against these people they were killing people they were experimenting on, and people were going into psychotic shock. People were having really bad episodes from this, just like in today's world, how people are being stalked and they're getting guns and going out and blowing people's heads off because they can't take it anymore. So, what do you think? I mean, you can relate to that, Josh, can't you?
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to back up, what you were talking about earlier, in case anybody, who's like more of a skeptic is like, well, but you were in a psychiatric ward. Well, guess what? Like when I was, I had intentionally threw myself out on the street for a reason, and it got to a point where the anxiety of everything, I said, you know what? I don't want to be out here. I'm just going to go check myself into this hospital voluntarily. And the thing of it is I was still following my script, like I've talked about in some other shows where I was told about my gang stalking in advance as a teenager, and so I kind of was going through the memory recall. Well, there were certain people that I guess themselves are TIs who were going to end up being in that hospital, and sure enough, there they were. So even though they were like, we were all plants in a way, it was like it was all out of our own going through what we were going through. But there was this one guy with a severe head injury that I remember them telling me about, and he exactly was the kind of person that you feel, and this was not just me, but with everybody, like he would just bother every single person. He'd come up to you and bother you if you're on the phone. He'd say weird stuff to you. He'd kind of get sometimes physically intimidating, and so to be trapped in a place like that, which has happened to me, and I've also, when I went into rehab, it was at a place that was being built in 1990 when I was going through one of my biggest programming sessions of all, and that's one of the places that they took me to because they were traumatizing me. They were sexually assaulting me, and then what were they doing when I was sitting there crying? They would hand me a beer. I was 16 years old, and they were trying to implant the addictive behaviors, the trauma at that time. So, this is the type of stuff that's still going on, and it champs my hide in a way that this church committee, this investigation, never got to the connection to the organized crime and to the child sex trafficking, because maybe that was purposely covered up.
It is organized crime, organized covert crime, but organized crime.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's great that they did it. It's historical. I feel like we need to look into how this investigation got initiated in the first place and try to recreate it on our own behalf. But I feel like it's a document that lets me down, because nothing changed out of it.
Yep.
People still don't believe it.
Absolutely.
It's out there, right?
I got the documents. If people want to read I got 2 MK Ultra files, and I'm going to find me a third one. I'm going to find some more if I can. And if people want to get copy, email me. I'll send you the copy of them. And you know, and Josh, I've spoken to over 100 people who've gone through organized stalking, and out of these over the 100 people, some of the people have been like yourself, people who've been taken into laboratories and different sorts of places and experimented on. I remember one man. He was being messed with, and he remembers going and talking to doctors and going to different places, and they wouldn't even have name tags.
Mhm.
They wouldn't have
Yeah,
name
that's
tags.
really wild.
Yeah, it was really well covered up. Hold up, I'm gonna do this quick reading real quick, Josh, and then I'm gonna give you the floor. Okay, man?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Project MK Ultra, the CIA's program of research and behavioral modification, Wednesday, August 3rd, 1977. U.S. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research of the Committee on Human Resources, Washington, D.C. The committees met pursuing to notice at 9:07 a.m. in room 1202. Dirksen, Senate Office Building, Senator Daniel K. Inou. I can't pronounce his name, so I'm going to spell it for the people. Inouye. Huh?
Yeah. Anoye, I think is how he says it.
Inouye. Thank you so much, Josh. You're so resourceful. Inouye. Okay, Daniel K. Inouye, Chairman of the Select Committee on Intelligence, presiding. Present, Senators Inouye, presiding, Kennedy, Goldwater, Bay, Hathaway, Huddleston, Hart, Schweiker, Case, Garn, Chaffee, Lugar, and Wallop. Also present, William G. Miller, Staff Director, Select Committee on Intelligence, Dr. Lawrence Horowitz, Staff Director, Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research, and professional staff members of both committees. Senator Inouye, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, is meeting today and is joined by the Subcommittee on Health and Scientific Research, chaired by Senator Edward Kennedy of Massachusetts and Senator Richard Schweiker of Pennsylvania. Senator Hathaway and Senator Chaffee are members of both committees. We are to hear testimony from the Director of the Central Intelligence Administration, Stansfield Turner, and from other agency witnesses on issues concerning new documents supplied to the committee in the last week on drug testing conducted by the Central Intelligence Agency. It should be made clear from the outset that in general, we are focusing on events that happened over 12 or as long as 25 years ago. It should be emphasized that the programs that are of greatest concern have stopped, and that we are reviewing these past events in order to better understand what statutes and other guidelines might be necessary to prevent the reoccurrence of such abuses in the future. We also need to know and understand what is now being done by the CIA in the field of behavioral research to be certain that no current abuses are occurring. I want to commend Admiral Turner for his full cooperation with this committee and with the Subcommittee on Health in recognizing that this issue needed our attention. The CIA has assisted our committees and staffs in their investigative efforts and in arriving at remedies which will serve the best interest of our country. Okay, so Josh, where are you gathering from that, man, that pretty much these people have agreed to have a meeting of the minds. They're going back 25 years, and they got the documents, and they want to know what has been going on.
It just, knowing what we know, that's just like one big cover-up. It's almost like if you came out 25 years later, you're like, oh yeah, the Tuskegee incident.
Right.
You know, I mean, they're already saying it's over when it's not. So that was really clever.
Oh no, it's going on today. Yeah, it's been happening to me. But
that is what makes me curious about what started the investigation and what evidence was presented for them to be able to get away with saying that.
Right. Absolutely. Okay, so
yeah. And I guess like maybe it was a different time too. It's like if that came out today, people would be hawk on it like they are with the whole, investigating like the Russia connection to the election. Like they wouldn't let it go. But this day people were just like, oh, okay, I guess we'll just have a hearing on it and that'll be it.
Yeah, and I don't like it. I look at it's too much for me. I look at my last 3 years. I've been getting stalked every single day, everywhere I fucking go. Lights on cars, people turning their lights on, people wearing colors. My food's been drugged. I've had my life threatened. I've had to hide in houses and shit for a fucking month. I've been put in involuntary psychiatrist where I have people show up in court and lie on me and all kinds of crazy shit, man. This shit, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing my best to help people and show them what's going on. This shit's too fucking much. It's too fucking much. It's too much going on, man. And so,
Yeah.
it's just way too much. It's way too fucking much. It's too much, man. It's too many criminals. It's too many fucking criminals with too much bullshit using it against motherfuckers. It's too much. It's way too much.
It's worse than anybody knows, the general public.
Yeah.
And I think when they find out, they're going to be like,
yeah, how I've been living for 3 years is a million times worse how anybody could imagine. If I could take a brick and just smash somebody's fucking face open with it and kill them, that wouldn't even be the equivalent of what I've been going through. That would be nothing compared to what I've had to experience. I'm going to go into the reading, Josh. The reappearance of reports of the abuses of the drug testing program and reports of other previously unknown drug programs and projects for behavioral control underline the necessity for effective oversight procedures both in the executive branch and in the Congress. The Select Committee on Intelligence has been working very closely with President Carter, the Vice President, and Admiral Turner and his associates in developing basic concepts for statutory guidelines which will govern all activities of the intelligence agencies of the United States. In fact, it is my expectation that the President will soon announce his decisions on how he has decided the intelligence agencies of the United States shall be organized. This committee will be working closely with the President and Admiral Turner in placing this new structure under the law and to develop effective oversight procedures. It is clear that effective oversight requires that information must be full and forthcoming. Full and timely information is obviously necessary if the committee and the public is to be confident that any transgressions can be dealt with quickly and forcefully. One purpose of this hearing is to give the committee and the public an understanding of what new information has been discovered that adds to the knowledge already available from previous Church and Kennedy inquiries, and to hear the reasons why these documents were not available to the Church and Kennedy committees. It is also the purpose of this hearing to address the issues raised by any additional illegal or improper activities that have emerged from the files and to develop remedies to prevent such improper activities from occurring again. Finally, there is an obligation on the part of both this committee and the CIA to make every effort to help those individuals or institutions that may have been harmed by any of these improper or illegal activities. I am certain that Admiral Turner will work with this committee to see that this will be done. I just like the way that these people write this. It gets you pumped up the way they put it into words. I guess in today's world, it's like the men are the women now. You don't have leaders anymore. I would now like to welcome the most distinguished senator for Massachusetts, the chairman of health the chairman of the Health Subcommittee, Senator Kennedy. Senator Kennedy, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We are delighted to join together in this very important area of public inquiry and public interest. Some 2 years ago, the Senate Health Subcommittee heard chilling testimony about the human experimentations activities of the Central Intelligence Agency. The deputy director of the CIA revealed that over 30 universities and institutions were involved in an extensive testing and experimentation program, which included covert drug tests on unwitting citizens. At all social levels, high and low, Native Americans and foreign, several of these tests involved the administration of LSD. What are you gathering? Are you following it, Josh?
I am. I've just got so many different thoughts. I was first thinking about that previous passage where they said to impose a new structure on the intelligence agencies, which I think back to my handlers talking about how things are so bad still that they're going to have to completely tear it down and start over. And so, first of all, they pretended like they did that. Like clearly it didn't work. And then the second part, um, it's just it makes me think about the development of like things like medical ethics and how
Right.
there was, I guess, this perception over time of, oh, it was a different era, when that's not really what it is. I mean, man, they're still using LSD. I mean, they put me on my first acid trip when I was about 4, 5, 6 years old. I think I was 4, actually. I mean, they're still manufacturing it. They're still experimenting with it. So, yeah. I mean, do we want to talk like more like our specific experiences, or do you want to keep like reading additional passages?
I'll go forward with one more, and then we'll go back. At all levels, several of these tests involve the administration of LSD to unwitting subjects in social situations. The least one death, that of Dr. Olson, resulted from these activities. The agency itself acknowledged that these tests made little scientific sense. The agents doing the monitoring were not qualified scientific observers. The test subjects were seldom accessible beyond the first hours of the test. In a number of instances, the test became ill for hours or days, and effective follow-up was impossible. Josh, that's one thing I've noticed in these gang stalking scenarios where people are being covertly drugged, electronic weapons are happening. It's like they're hiring regular people from the public, and everybody knows the public has a third grade reading level. So it's
Right.
almost as if they're hiring irresponsible, oftentimes mentally deranged people to carry out these heinous, demonic, illegal experiments. They're basically, it's for harassment purposes, and they're just hiring anybody
Mhm.
bum off the street to help them do it. And
Right.
but this is from years ago. I'm talking about in modern, what we're going through in today's world through the gang stalking. It's not much different.
It's really not, and it still goes back to things like the Milgram experiment and also what they would call the badge effect, where you just somebody comes up, shows you their badge, and tells you, "I need you to do this to this person," and they did an expose on this on I think on a Dateline maybe a while back, and you'd be surprised how many people just a guy could come up to them and say he was a cop and that he was like bounty hunting this woman who wasn't her baby, and could you go in and like get that baby from her and take it out and get it to me? And the woman went in there and stole the lady's baby and ran out with it and gave it to him.
Right.
You know,
Right.
yeah. So I can imagine, what if somebody went to that restaurant because they knew that you liked it and told somebody, oh, this guy's a weirdo. We need to like take him somewhere and this, that, and the other, and they were like, sure, I'll go ahead and drop this in this food. Or it's somebody that's working, for the people that I guess have targeted you, like whoever that would be for whatever reason. Have you ever figured out, like, do you feel like it's just random, or do you feel like you were already kind of like a whistleblower type in general, and they targeted you from
Yeah.
the past?
Well, I was before I got gang stalked. I had some other stuff. I had multiple other YouTube channels, and I was doing research. I was in the conspiracy field, exposing a lot of stuff. And so it didn't surprise me that something like this happened to me. It didn't surprise me at all. But what has surprised me is it's been happening to people who really don't seem to be blowing the whistle on anything, and they're just normal people off the streets who, like, this is like, there's 19-year-old women in college emailing me telling me this is happening to them. There's now mothers saying that this is happening to their children. That one
Mm-hmm.
woman said her 6-year-old daughter is now being put under this gang stalking, street terrorism. And so it does surprise me that it's happening to much larger group of people out there. Like, I've been getting emails from people all over the world, from Argentina to Africa to Australia, to just people from all over contact me, and they tell me that they can't go to the cops, they can't go to the government, they can't even go to the United Nations. There's been people who've told me that they've been going to the Russian government for help and the Chinese government for help. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of these people are suicidal and they're desperate, and So, but yeah, it doesn't surprise me it happened to me, but it surprises me again that these people are being experimented on, and you got to ask yourself, what are these experiments about? What are they going to be doing with this in the future?
Do you feel like any part is like could be part of the UN agenda, or like maybe we've had silent war declared against us, and the people that are doing it are just like they think they're on the side that's going to win, like whatever they think is coming. Like maybe they even
I
secretly are initiating like civil war somehow.
I don't know. I think what it is, it's extremely compartmentalized, and it's happening all over the world. Like this is happening again. It's happening to people in the jungles of Africa. I think it's demonic. I think that the people doing this are enemies of the highest power in the universe, and they're looking to create a demonic agenda. Like they're literally running around just terrorizing people. It's like a form, it's a form of them. It's a form of them trying to create some sort of system to where they can possibly extort people. They can extort
Mm-hmm.
governments. Like you got to think of what kind of extortion tool would this be? If you're a
Right.
businessman in the business world, or if you're a politician and you want to do something in the best interest of your people, and you get threatened with something like this, can you honestly make the best decision for your people or yourself or your family or your business? You can't. So I think
Right.
this is a form. I think this is a form of extort. I think this is used as a form of extortion as well.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
You
no, no,
know.
no doubt. Like extortion and also what they
Mm.
call just a deterioration if they're really trying to take somebody out. Like, I mean, there's a lady was a really successful attorney who I've listened to on Ella Free, and I think her name is Susan Markenstein, and it first started for her with these other law associates where there was some kind of disagreement about somebody she was or wasn't romantically involved with, and it turned into a big Facebook fight and she started noticing weird things happening, like odd charges on a credit card she never used, people messing with her computer, and she reported those things as because those are technically still crimes. Even if somebody did it for some weird reason, it's technically a crime. Well, the police showed up at her house at like midnight with a social worker in tow and like banged real hard on her window instead of her door, so like to jolt her, and got in there and they're like, oh, you think somebody's hacking your computer and it might be connected to a problem you're having with some friends. We want you to come down to the hospital for an evaluation. They ended up putting her in there twice, and I think making her stay at least as long as 8 to 10 days both times. And she was like, I learned my lesson about trying to go to the police about it. Um,
Right.
and it slowly, she had to move. She had to start her own practice because she couldn't. She was blacklisted. She couldn't get hired at any law firm anywhere, no matter what she did. Yeah, and that just can ruin a person's life if you're not maybe don't have like that high of a degree. It's like imagine if there's only one thing you're really good at, and now you can't get a job. You may have to go on like disability. You can end up homeless. You may end up deciding, oh, I guess I'll just rob banks. I mean, it's very destructive what they're doing. It's a very destructive program.
It's extremely destructive what they're doing. And I think about what I've been going through in 3 years, and like the situation I told you about the with the psychiatric hospital. That's been going on, and there's no help for anybody. Either the cops are going to be involved in the street terrorism, or they're going to help to cover it up. You,
Right.
you can't, and people can't go to their government. They can't go to anybody. It's basically a situation where you're on your own. You're completely on your own, and you have to make what you can out of the situation. Nobody's coming to help you. And
Right.
I woke up in the middle of the night in my room. I remember waking up one night and feeling huge pains to the back of my head in my room, and I knew somebody was using an electronical radiation gun on me when I was sleeping, pulsing me in the back of my
Mhm.
head. I've had that happen, and this is how I've
Yeah.
been living for 3 years. I've been going everywhere where all the store managers, everybody in the stores are participating in it, the churches, everybody. And there's disinformation campaigns they use to recruit people, and they recruit people in different sorts of ways. But I've been living like this for 3 years, and
Yeah.
I've had helicopters used on me. I've had everything. I've actually had airplanes used. Like, this isn't a joke. Like, everybody from homeless
Right.
people to, yeah, I know it sounds funny, but I'm being serious.
Well, I believe
I'm not
you.
sure. Yeah, I'm
I
not
believe you.
exaggerating. I'm not exaggerating at all. I'm not confused about anything. I've been living like this for 3 years. And so, I people don't know what that's like. I hid in a house for a month. I was getting death threats. People were calling me, my telephone threatening to kill me, and they were sending me emails threatening to kill me. And I was getting text messages. Like, people were contacting me threatening to fucking kill me. And I had to hide, and I was hiding in the house for a month. And every time I went to the windows, they would have people who looked a certain sort of way driving by through the neighborhood, like at specific times, to make it look like people were actually coming to my fucking home to kill me. And I lived like that for a
Hmm.
whole month. I did not leave my house for a month. I had to beg people to take the trash out. I lived like that for a
Wow.
whole fucking people don't get that. People don't get that. Like, that's how I've been living. I've had to run across highways twice in my life. I've ran across highways in broad daylight with cars speeding at me like they were going to hit me and kill me. Like, I used to walk down the street and have cars drive in front of me and keep going towards me like they were going to run me over, and at the last minute they would turn away and keep going. This is the life I've been
Hmm.
living for 3 years. There's no exaggeration in this. Like, this is really happening to me for 3 years straight.
Yeah,
It's
man.
criminal. It's criminal. Yeah.
You're,
I've been
you're
targeted
holding.
by a very huh?
I'm sorry. I think there's a delay on my end. I was gonna say you're holding up really great though, man. And the fact that you're able to
Right.
go out and do this educational courses to help other people is fantastic.
Right. Right. Yeah, if I go and I hang out with people, the stalking street terrorist networks will contact the people and start paying them to do stuff to me, to fuck with me. And so it's not just me going out and living a normal life, walking around getting stalked and terrorized. Like, even the people closest to me get approached and offered money and stuff to get involved. Like, this is literally a street terrorist psychological harassment campaign that I've been living through for 3 years. It's completely criminal. And
Yeah.
I don't believe in the law anymore. I don't believe in the police. I don't believe in the law. I don't believe in any of that stuff. I don't think any of it's real. I don't believe in any of it.
Is
Like, I live in a completely different world.
right, right. It's like we're like in this double life that only we know about, basically.
Yeah.
And
No, I live.
what's
Yeah.
scary to me,
Yeah.
I was just gonna
I
say
don't
some of
believe.
these
I don't.
people. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, some of these people, like I said, how it triggers the memories. There's some when I recognize them, I realize that part of what's bugging me is that I remember them from the past, but then there's some that are total strangers. But the thing to me that's interesting about it is how many of them I feel like if it's those people maybe I'd met them once before, they don't realize what they're doing. It's like it's autonomic, and it's like we're all just zombies. It's like a zombie. There's a zombie section of gang stalking, and then there's the people that are like consciously doing it, and you sometimes you can't tell the difference. But I know for me, there is a noticeable difference in like people's behavior, and I don't think I've done anything different. I mean, I respond. Fortunately, I'm one of those people. I'm very sensitive to your energy, so if somebody's kind of negative, it'll kind of change my mood, and I have to talk myself out of it. If people are being really nice, it gives me a boost. And as some of the triggers have seemed to sort of go away, I've noticed that more and more people seem to be friendlier. If that makes sense. I still get some days where I see some people, I'm like, well, that person has a bad energy. I'm going to avoid them. But it's like I don't see as many of the intentional acts that are like designed to get attention. And I feel like it's almost like the more of a break you get, the stronger you get each time if it happens again. But that's what's hard for people is like if you can't catch a break, you could never rest or go back to your previous states. I think it makes it very difficult, and I think that's why it's such a good idea that you have about going out off the grid for a while. I mean, imagine if that's the first break that person has had in like years from just the constant the
Oh,
noise.
that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm finishing the episode. You're helping me to close the deal. I just did 10 episodes of education on gang stalking, and I just did you're helping me close the deal on the 10th episode of the Off the Grid. And then what we're doing is we're going to be filming from off the like outside of the city, like we're going to be doing like it's like, you know what I mean, like it's for real. Like the next stuff that's coming is going to be like the lifestyle of it. Like this isn't a joke. And people
Yeah,
are on their way, you know what I'm saying, like people are coming to meet me and stuff. It's like going to be more of like an alternative thing. Like I've been going through this for 3 years, and I've been planning this stuff for a while. So, but you know,
have
and
you have you located an area that uh you think you're interested in yet?
oh yeah, yeah, and I'm not going to be using cell phones or very little of cell phones and stuff like that. Like it's going to be like, you know what I mean? It's going to be something where there's going to be a detachment, and it's going to be an emotional thing for. It's going to be like an emotional progressive thing for me. And I think a part of the gang stalking is the demonic people, like they need people to prey on and to live off of. And I'm sort of like slamming the door in their faces by doing that as well. Like you don't have the
Yeah.
authority to listen. You're not going to be a part of my life anymore. Like the phone calls, like it's over with, bitch. Fuck you. Whatever.
Yeah.
When you get what you got coming, remember what you did to me. You stupid fucking bitch. And so that's the feeling. That's not directed towards anybody in particular. That's just sort of the feeling I'm putting across.
Right.
Like,
It's
you
like
know what
if
I
you can
mean?
figure out who's the face of it for you, really, it's the
Yeah,
feedback on them. You
yeah,
know?
motherfucker. Yeah. Don't look at me. Look behind your fucking back, dumb motherfucker. So, right. So that's sort of the vibe I'm giving off as I'm moving on. And you know what I mean? Like I'm not playing any game with these motherfuckers. Like fuck that shit. So,
Yeah.
but what part of, you know what I mean? So, but so I'm gonna do a little more reading. Do you mind if I hit one more
Oh, go
reading real
ahead.
quick? Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
For example, heroin addicts were enticed into participating in LSD experiments in order to get a reward. Heroin, perhaps most disturbing of all, was the fact that the extent of the experimentation on human subjects was unknown. The records of all these activities were destroyed in January 1973 at the instruction of then CIA Director Richard Helms. In spite of persistent inquiries by both the Health Subcommittee and Intelligence Committee, no additional records or information were forthcoming, and no one single individual could be found who remembered the details, not the director of the CIA, who ordered the documents destroyed, not official responsible for the program, not the official responsible for the program, nor any of his associates. We believe that the record, incomplete as it was as complete as it was going to be. Then one individual, through a Freedom of Information request, accomplished what two U.S. Senate committees could not. He spurred the agency into finding additional records pertaining to the CIA's program of experimentation with human subjects. These new records were discovered by the agency in March. Their existence was not made known to Congress until July. The records reveal a far more extensive series of experiments than had previously been thought. 86 universities or institutions were involved. New instances of unethical behavior were revealed. The intelligence community of this nation, which requires a shroud of secrecy in order to operate, has a very sacred trust from the American people. The CIA's program of human experimentation of the 50s and 60s violated that trust. It was violated again on the day the bulk of the agency's records were destroyed in 1973. It is violated each time a responsible official refuses to collect the details of the program. The best safeguard against abuses in the future is a complete public accounting of the abuses of the past. I think this is illustrated as Chairman I forgot how to say that again, Josh. Inoue? How you say it?
Just pretty close to Noye, I think.
Inoue? Okay. I think this is
Yeah.
illustrated, as Chairman Inoue pointed out, these are issues, are questions that happened in the 50s and 60s and go back some 15 to 20 years ago, but they are front page news today, as we see in the major newspapers and on the television and in the media of this country. And the reason they are, I think, is because it just continuously begins to trickle out, sort of month after month. And the best way to put this period behind us, obviously, is to have the full information. And I think that is the desire of Admiral Turner and of the members of this committee. The Central Intelligence Agency drugged American citizens without their knowledge or consent. It used university facilities and personnel without their knowledge. It funded leading researchers often without their knowledge. These institutes, these individuals have a right to know who they are and how they were used. As of today, the agency itself refuses to declassify the names of those institutions and individuals. Quite appropriately, I might say, with regard to the individuals under the Privacy Act, it seems to me to be a fundamental responsibility to notify those individuals or institutions, rather. I think many of them were caught up in an unwitting manner to do research for the agency. Many researchers, distinguished researchers, some of our most outstanding members of our scientific community involved in this network now really do not know whether they were involved or not. And it seems to me that the whole health and climate in terms of our university and our scientific and health facilities are entitled to that response. All right, I'm finished reading. Josh, how do you feel about that? Or do you have any more different sorts of insights than anything else?
Well, I mean, as far as the universities, there's so much. I found some articles out there that were very interesting about the CA's involvement in academia, and I know that when I was a kid, one of the places I was taken to, I don't know if I should say the name or not, but pretty major research institute. And they had a whole setup in there. It was like they gave me some kind of weird test that involved like flashing images or something on a computer. They had my brain hooked up to electrodes, all this stuff. So that would be a case where that kind of thing's still gone there. There was also something that I don't remember exactly what was done to me. Other than I remember being on a table, but this is in a room like on the ground floor at one of the University of Texas system colleges. I think it was Prairie View, UT at Prairie View. So again, we keep going back to that same thing. It's like they just came out and said, "Okay, you caught us," and merrily they go back onto it. It's really kind of mind-boggling too, like the whole network of people that they have that are participating. You kind of sometimes wonder at each level what they say. They always say at each level the lie is different. I think, like you're saying, with compartmentalization, and maybe that's part of why it's so hard to get this whole thing broken down.
Yeah, it is. It's very compartmentalized, and I don't, I know I've been going through it for 3 years, and I can imagine the money that's been spent on it, and I can imagine the networking and the coordination behind it, and I can imagine, the evil people involved with it. And like I said, I'm motherfucker. I'm not supporting anybody's fucking weird fantasies anymore. I'm fucking out. I'm doing my off the grid series, and I'm finishing it up, and I'm getting targets together, and we're gonna be having fun together.
Yeah.
Fuck that fucking bullshit. So, but yeah, Josh, it's really interesting. Like, we can go back and we can read these old files, and we can see that the same things that have been going on to people way back then are going on to people now. And it's really it's horrible. It's really fucking horrible. I wish people actually knew what I've been going through for 3 years, every single fucking day, all day long, every day for 3 years. So, I then
It's,
Josh,
it's like you wouldn't wish it on anybody though. At the same time, you know what I mean? It's
I
like,
would. I do. I wish the people who've done some of the things to me, if this could happen to them, I would vote for it. I wish something
well,
worse
there's
would
that,
happen to
yeah, but
them.
I mean, like, just our audience. I wouldn't wish on our audience that they aren't going through it if they're just
Oh
starting
no, no,
out.
no! I wouldn't wish it on the audience. People, no, I wouldn't. I would. I mean, I don't know. Maybe one. Josh, don't you think it would be cool if we could give people demonstrations of it? Like teach people what it's like and how to do it. Like show people
Yeah,
what it feels. I think that would be a wonderful thing. I think that would
it
be a
would be very.
wonderful thing.
Yeah, we
Joe?
can have all our own group of TI actors. We can do street theater on people, and you know, but as long as they understand what they're participating in, and when we do it, they're not gonna like freak out on us. That'd be the only thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I wish I could give people. I wish I could give people just like a classroom demonstration, show them what it's like for just maybe an hour to walk around being followed by people's red shirt. But it would never really be the same thing. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? But I guess it would be like an open window to them to learn about it.
Mhm.
And so, it'd definitely be an open window for them to learn about it, but I don't think we could really learn um I don't think we could really ever learn how to, we would never, we can get close to it though. Like people like me and you, if a few of us who've been going through it for a while got together, we could probably come up with some some scenarios that were really similar, but at the same time they would know what was happening. See what I'm
Right.
saying?
You
They
feel
they
like
would know they would know as just they would know as just an example, and so it wouldn't if it just started happening to somebody and they didn't know what was going on, it'd be far different. But
yeah. My only fear is that if they get the lesson enough to start seeing it happening around like to other people, like they're going out and maybe somebody else is getting gang stalked, like to what degree have we just sensitized them to where they suddenly start to wonder if it's them, and it could be them too, but I just kind of would worry about that as well. If they really got it and they noticed it, I wonder what that would be like if they started to see it
mhm,
anytime they went grocery shopping or something. You know what I mean?
mhm. Yeah, what do you mean like have them go grocery shopping and follow them around the stores and stuff? Like,
Well, like if they went to one of your classes, but somehow because they got the message, they were able to witness it happening around them. Now, like maybe they're in there and there's like a TI in there who's getting actively gang stalked, like right near them, and they see it, and then they see it more and more, and then it starts to happen where they're seeing it so much they start to wonder if they're now being gang stalked.
mhm.
You see what I mean? Like if they were to get sensitized. I'm not saying it would happen. I just, was kind of curious if you thought that was a possibility.
Yeah. Man, I remember one time, I remember back when I was being gang stalked, I would go to my window and I would look out, and just because I looked out the window, the Christmas lights, like this was all a orchestrated technological thing of gang stalking, but one house would have the
Right.
Christmas lights on. And then when I walked out there, outside, all the Christmas lights in the neighborhood would come on just because I walked outside. Like it was little stuff like that would happen. Like this stuff was really set up to fuck. This stuff's really set up to fuck with people's minds. I don't think most people realize what it is to live like that. So just because you go to
Right.
a window and look out the window, people like a network has the ability to like start making people's Christmas lights come on, and then you walk outside and all the Christmas lights come on, or you come home and all your neighbors like the majority of your neighbors' house lights are on in broad daylight for the gaslighting effect, and people purposely like park cars in their driveway just because of the colors of the fucking cars, and people put stuff in their yard just because of people don't have any idea what it is to live like that. And that's just a small
Yeah.
like that's nothing. That's just a fucking flicker of that's just a flicker of it. And And so, to simulate this stuff for people, we could do it. I think that we can come up with some really good classes and courses, but the level of the inhumane harassment and stalking and the criminality of it, I don't think people would really get it.
Right. No, well, I mean, dude, I was just thinking about like the thing that happened to me a lot that gets to me is like, imagine every time you go and you turn on your car, if you left the radio on, it's like it'll either be a song telling you to run, usually Pink Floyd, run, 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 you know, another runner in the night. There's all those different songs, or you do run, run, run. It's like right when you're getting the pressure of all like the death threats or the something's bad's gonna happen to you if you stay at your house tonight, and you're not like meaning to time. You didn't know how you're timing this, but you walk out and whatever like song comes on is some type of trigger. And so that kind of stuff happens in addition to what you're saying with like the lights coming on or people behaving strangely. And it just gets to where you do start to change your behaviors. Like I would get to where I would just keep the radio off, even though I'm very much into music. I'm a musician. Like I would stop going to the store at certain stores sometimes, and I would try to maybe if I go somewhere else, I'll avoid it. You know what I mean? And it
Right.
didn't really matter. It was like any store that I went to, there was something. I almost felt like I was sent by one trigger into the arms of another, like bouncing around like a ping pong ball, trying to not get irritated with what was happening.
Right.
And
Right.
then that goes on and on and on. Oh, dude, it's just no, it's horrible.
Yeah. You know, it's a real it's really wild, and I think most people who are listening to us, they hear the things we're saying, and unless they're going through it, they won't know how it is to go through every single day like that. Like
Mhm.
after 5 days, the average person is going to be terrified. They're not going to want it. They're just going to be like, please stop, just please stop. And it does. Oh no, what do you mean stop, motherfucker? We're just this might be going on for the rest of your life. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
people don't
Right.
get that. They do not get that. They do not get that. That this is something that you're being stalked by street terrorists and having your food drugged and electronical weapons and all sorts of psychological harassment techniques and subliminal neural linguistic street theater plays and shit. Like I try to go meet some girl just because I like her and the girl shows interest in me and she likes me, and the next thing you know they're bribing the girl and getting the girl to participate. They're doing like little neural linguistic street theater plays to symbolize the girl sucking some guy's fucking dick to try to make me jealous or so, like all kinds of crazy ass
Oh
shit.
wow.
And yeah, I'm not
Wow.
joking, dude. I got to live like this for 3 years. Like
Mhm.
I can't even go hang out with people without the people being bribed to participate in these little weird sick fucking games. And I have to live like that. I've had my food drug. I had my life threatened and shit like that. Like it doesn't affect me as much as it used to because I'm used to. I've been going through it for so long. I'm used to it. It's like I don't like whatever. Fuck you then, bitch. Like go about your business then, you dumbass hoe. Like that's the mentality I've derived from it. Yeah, yeah. I'm just being honest, man. That's the mentality I've derived. Like if somebody like if you're feeling the gang if you want that Walmart card that bad and like you can't kick it with me and talk to me, then fuck you then. I'm not gonna I'm not whatever, man. Like fuck it. But that's just what's going on. People don't understand what it is to live like that. And have
They don't. I wish that I had said that to somebody. I remember a couple of weekends ago I was out with some friends and there's one of them who it's like I know that like nothing's ever going to happen, but I do have just a little bit of a crush, right? And
right.
nobody knows that as far as I know except me. That while we're walking through this place in Dallas, like window shopping, there's always this couple that keeps passing us by, and they're saying little things like, "Oh, it must be fate," like little hints of like, "Oh, we know that you kind of find this person attractive." It's like you do sometimes if you're in a mood want to turn at them and just say, "Look, asshole, you shut your trap." And like you're saying, go take your gift card or whatever it is, and you can go shove it where the sun doesn't shine, or go use it, but get out of my face. Or it's, there's some days, dude. There's some days where you almost like want them to come up to you and just like give you the opportunity to get into it with them and just kick their ass. But I try to Now do that because that means they're starting to win on the anger thing about needing to like get that aggression out somehow, and that's part of that whole thing where they go too long and people run out and they get the guns, like you're saying. Um,
Right.
and
Right.
yeah, and it's the combination of that, or it's the MK Ultra. And I know that the one guy, I'm not going to say the name, but the Aurora shooter, I can remember my handler talking to me about him. He was one of hers for subjects actually, and the
Mhm.
university he was at in the graduate department, they were researching Lunesta, and they were covertly, his classmates were covertly drugging him shortly before he did that shooting. Um, so this is some serious stuff, and I don't know what's going to take for people to get it. I think it's just going to have to be like actual disclosure on like the news that everybody watches, you know. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon, unfortunately.
I mean, there's already been disclosures. Like we're like, we're sitting here today getting covertly drugged and people using radiation weapons and psychotronic weapons on us in 2018. And like, as you can see, there was congressional hearings and like actual hearings where you had like the director of the CIA and stuff like admitting they were doing this to people back in the set. I mean, it was going on back in like 1953 officially on paper. And
Right.
you like nothing stopped. I mean, the CIA. I don't think the CIA is formally